acceptable respect for a few things. People talk about a desire to be successful. All of the elements.
Everybody, I hope that all of you guys have had a great week. I know that we are in the midst of some challenging times, and there's a lot going on, and it can easily be overwhelming. Hello, everybody. And so I wanted to drop in and talk about something that's kind of touchy. There are going to be some people who are probably going to be taken aback by what I say. For the longest, I've always said that I have not created these platforms, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whether it's one of my websites, whether it's Facebook. I did not create a presence for the sake of being popular. I did not create a presence for the sake of getting likes and shares. I created it because I believed I had something to share, that I had put enough energy and effort into understanding certain things that I could bring some illumination or lucidity to certain things that people deal with, and that I would speak truth in place of a need to tell people what they wanted to hear, or to say whatever I felt was necessary in order to become a part of a popular movement. So there are times when people love me, and there are times when people hate me, and I'm all good with it all. I'm going to do the best I can to speak truth for the sake of empowerment, and to share for the sake of enlightenment, and to allow people to take what I share and do what they feel they need to do with it. Sometimes you're going to disregard it or dismiss it. Sometimes you're going to contemplate it and evaluate it. Other times you're going to actually say, this is something that I can chew on and swallow, digest, and process. And that is why I'm here. There's a lot that's been going on surrounding this current COVID-19 pandemic. And I am not going to attempt in one sitting to sit around and address all the issues, but there is something that I do want to address. I'm not going to take too long, but I do want to bring some clarity and lucidity on one particular area. On both sides of this discussion, there are people mishandling and misusing the numbers for the sake of making their argument. Some of them are being calculative and intentional. Others are simply doing it because they don't understand how numbers are calculated, how projections are made, and all of the, things that go into crunching data to produce an idea of what you're really looking at. Some are sharing from a position of simply they don't understand. Others are actually sharing knowing what they're sharing and presenting is out of context. And I want to kind of bring some clarity to this, and I want to challenge people to get out of their emotions long enough to actually see things for what they truly are. With that being said, there are memes floating around about the 1 to 2% death rate of COVID-19, and there is this push or an idea that because people are pointing out that it's a low death rate, relatively speaking, that people don't care about those who fall into that 1 to 2% category, that they don't matter. Well, the truth is that's not the case for most people. There are some people who actually do not care about people, but the most people who are pointing this out is saying that there are things that kill us daily that have been made, quote unquote, socially acceptable through the media, through political constructs, through social constructs, that we don't give it the same validity that we're giving it. The reason that we have such a problem with COVID-19 and the associated deaths with it is that it has not been made socially acceptable, and that the deaths are constantly being plastered on social media. And so we are literally giving more gravity to it than we give to others. The truth of the matter is, when people talk about the 1% to 2%, first of all, stop saying 1% to 2% of the US population, because that's not the numbers. The numbers is 1% to 2% of those who actually contract the disease. And you have to be aware of the fact that many of the diagnoses of COVID-19 have not been diagnosis through tests. They have been diagnosis through presumption, actually presumed to have it based on symptoms and not actually being tested. Even those who have been tested have been false positive. Am I sitting up and saying there's not a problem to go out and just be happy and go lucky? Nope, me and my family's not doing it. That's not what I'm saying. What I have said from the beginning is be careful of the fear. Know the complete situation, know what you're dealing with, know both sides of the story, because you're normally getting two extremes who have agenda trying to convince you of something. And normally the truth and the best balance is somewhere in the middle. My thing is, me and my family have been very careful about our movements. We've had to tell grandkids, no, you can't come over right now because we don't know where you guys have been, and we're trying to keep this on the low. We don't want to overwhelm the household. We already have enough kids in the house. But at the same time, we're not panicked. We go to the store, we go do what we have to do to make sure we have food in the house and everybody's good. But we are limiting our movements and we're limiting our exposure because there's so much about COVID-19 that we don't know. Okay, but here's the thing. The 1% to 2% is not 1% to 2% of the US population. It's 1% to 2% of those who actually contract the disease. And yes, there are people who have not been tested who do have it. And the vast majority of them have actually have it, went through it, didn't even know they have it, have been healed and completely past it and never knew it, because relatively speaking, this is a mild virus. When you talk about a 1.2, therefore it's mild, when the vast majority of people are experiencing mild symptoms. That anything that's considered mild is basically, you don't have to be hospitalized for it. You know, you get through it, some discomfort, and you move on and you're done. If you have to be hospitalized for it, then obviously it's not a mild symptom, it's a severe symptom. And then you move from mild to serious, severe. Okay, so those are the things that we kind of understand that. What I'm trying to get across is this. Because, you know, there's this thing like, well, which, you know, basically which 1% to 2% of your family would you want to give up? I don't want to give up any of my family, but what I can tell you is I've consistently lost family my entire life. And just in the last year, I've lost family to car wrecks. I've lost family to heart attacks. Shit, I almost died from multiple heart attacks. Those are things that I relate to, but the thing is, they have been deemed socially acceptable forms of death, although they were in most cases preventable. The vast majority of people who die from heart attacks don't die because of congenital heart defects. In other words, something they were born with. They die because of poor lifestyles, poor food choices, poor exercise, bad decisions along the way that create smoking, drinking, a bunch of other things that can be preventable. And they're dying at heart. 650,000 will die this year from heart disease. The flu, common flu, comes around every season, starting in spring and going through winter and into, in fall and going through winter into spring. It comes along every year. It's going to kill roughly around 600,000 people this year if everything goes as planned. You've got obesity and all of the diseases and things associated with it. You have cancer, all of those things. The thing is, people are dying from those already. Car accidents. Every time you get in your car and you leave out of your house, you are at risk. You're putting yourself at risk. You are taking a chance. The thing is, they've been made socially acceptable. That's the difference between what we're seeing now with COVID and what we look at every day with risk we automatically take without ever thinking it. We take risk with our diet. We take risk with our drinking. We take risks with our smoking. We take all these risks. Like I said, I have lost relatives to heart attacks. I almost died from a heart attack. I lost my grandmother to a heart attack. I lost my mother-in-law to a heart attack. These are people I can just sit up that are extremely close to me that had a massive impact on how my life was affected by their deaths. And they died from heart attacks. I don't know anybody personally. And I hope I'm not misspeaking, but I don't know anybody personally that's died. I know of people who have died from COVID, and my heart goes out to them. This is not dismissing the people who have died. This is sitting up and saying people die daily from things we can prevent, but we don't have the same energy for it because it's been made socially acceptable. Things that are killing us at a much higher rate have been made socially acceptable, and we don't even think about it. While we're complaining about being open back up and going out in the COVID, and I'm not taking a stance on any side of that. That's something personally. You have to decide when you're going back out. That's on you. You know your threshold of pain financially. You know your threshold of pain of being locked in the house with the kid, because I'm about to catch a case. So at some point, I'm going to have to get the kids out of the house. But, seriously speaking, that's a personal decision. Opening up doesn't say you have to get your family out of the house. It's saying that there's an option now. So I'm not taking a stance on either side of that. But what I am saying is this. If you go out of the house, you're going to take a risk that you could end up hurt or killed in a car accident. If you go out of the house, you're going to take a chance that you could be mugged or robbed. All of the statistics out there for all of the ways that people die every year. And at the end of this year, I can guarantee you COVID-19 will not be at the top. It will still be heart disease. It will still be auto accident. It will still be a number of other issues that will take the top spots that have been considered socially acceptable. If you want to live the life that you live in America now, you're going to realize that a certain amount of people are going to get killed in car accidents. If you want the freedoms that you have in America to move around and bear arms, you got to know that a certain amount of people are going to be killed by firearms every year. And a bunch of people are okay with that. Yes, there's a group that wants to take the guns away, but this country was built on it, and most of the people here are armed. Get used to that and get ready for it. But that is a price you pay. When you don't address the poverty issue, people are going to rob and steal to eat. That's the last and final resort. People are not sitting around and starving to death. They are going to find a way to feed themselves. And so you have crime. And so crime can lead to death. And it's so many other things that are out there. I'm not marginalizing what's happening here. I'm saying that stop letting people use the numbers to manipulate you and not see the bigger picture. The bigger picture is the vast majority of us are at a much greater risk of dying from something other than COVID than we are COVID. And the thing that we're more likely to die from, we're actually not worried about. We look at our eating habits. And that's something that my wife and I have decided that we obviously have to take a more aggressive approach on. And so we're doing, actually this day is the beginning of a 30-day no sugar challenge, no added sugar challenge. So it's going to be interesting, but it's absolutely necessary, especially on my part, with my recent scare with a heart attack. And so what I'm getting at is this. Don't let them play the numbers. Number one is 1 to 2% is not meant to say that the 2% that's passing away don't matter. It's giving you a reference of the severity and the weight of the threat so that you can compare it to other situations. You are more likely to die from a bunch of other things that you're okay with while you're freaking out about this virus. And that's the thing that I'm talking about. I'm not saying be foolish. I'm not saying be stupid. I'm not saying take any risk that you're not comfortable with taking. But don't let it play. Another thing is, and I talked about this, we've got to get out of our emotions so that we can start thinking critically. We're allowing our emotions to guide our decision making and our responses to a bunch of things that's going on. We have such a hatred for Agent Orange, and he makes it so easy. He does. He makes it easy, but he does that on purpose. You guys do realize that while he says some absolutely moronic stuff, most of that stuff is on purpose. He's not a politician. He has been a businessman and an entertainer. He has been running reality shows and businesses in whatever way you want to do it. I'm not here to defend the dude. He's not on any list of favorites. I'm not here to defend him, but I am here to say that he is so far from the focus of where I'm at right now because I've studied that seat that he sits in. I've studied it for about 20 years now, and I have yet to find a person who actually gave Black people an advance or a push while they sat in it. That's not the seat that's going to produce what we need to produce. It's that simple. We can sit up and romanticize about whatever president we want to romanticize about. But if you look back from 1865 to 2020, we have not gained but maybe 0.02% in the wealth we own. And we've actually had a widening of the wealth gap between us and whites. That's what's happened under any administration, the Democratic or Republic. The white wing and the left wing, the white wing and the left wing belong to the same bird. I've been saying that for years. You have a right wing and you have a left wing, but they belong to the same bird, and that bird has been shitting on Black people since we got here. And if we don't ever really truly take the time to understand that, they will keep playing us. And all they're doing right now is saying, if you don't want this dude, then here's your reality. And none of us have ever stopped and said, what if we don't want that reality either? What if we want to recreate something that actually works for us and we stop dealing with the lesser of two evils? My guy doesn't do what he did, but your guy did A, B, C, and D, and all that crap hurt us. But because we hate him more, we're going to go ahead and go with your guy. How does that work for us? Look at the poverty lines. Look at home ownership, which has not changed in the 50 years since the civil rights movement and all the legislation we got. And since all of us have been voting and doing all that stuff, we literally have not gained any ground in wealth ownership. In fact, the wealth gap is wide. So my concern is that we have such a hatred for this dude. And the fact that I'm calling him dude should show my contempt. But we got so much hatred for him that we're not thinking. We got so much hatred that we're about to do something that's going to cause us some pain. Number one is, I don't even think that if we do go straight Biden, that Biden's going to beat this dude, because Biden hasn't came to the table with anything. And there are a lot of people who have made up in their minds that they are not going to back this dude based off of his past. And his past is steady coming back to bite him in the heels. And I'm gonna show you how irrational we are. We hate Trump so bad because Trump is misogynistic. We hate him so bad because he says some dumb stuff. We hate him so bad because of this and that we can't possibly do it. Then we get news that Biden's done some of the same things we hate Trump for. But we hate Trump so bad that we give Biden a pass. Well, maybe this, maybe that. No, remember the Me Too. Matter of fact, it was Biden himself that says that if a woman alleges sexual misconduct or abuse, believe her. And then now we're getting all the film and the footage. It's obvious dude has a problem with touching. At the very least, he has a problem with touching. We also have the film and the audio of him saying some pretty disparaging things about people of color, specifically blacks, and how it negatively impacted his children that integration took place. We got that literally being said. We also know for a fact that he co-authored a crime bill that totally decimated and devastated the black community. And so we know that. We know that he referred to our children as super predators. He and Hillary Clinton. And the thing is, we're not going to win as a people focusing our energy on that seat. That's a vassal seat anyway. If you don't know what a vassal leader is, or a vassal position or office is, you know, it was a term that used to be used for kings. It's when someone has conquered something and then they're actually in control, but they leave the king to rule, but really the king has to report to them and do what they say. That's a vassal seat. Trump has proven that there's some authority and power in it, but it's still limited to what what the wealthy elite desire to have happen. The wealthy elite have been protected in this country for centuries, and so we understand that. What I'm trying to get us to understand is that we've got to stop making decisions based off that guy. I can't stand him. We got to get him out of office. My thing is, has it ever occurred to any of us that our ancestors and our elders may have been onto something? When I say ancestors and elders, I'm speaking specifically to the Black Nationalist Party and the Black Panther Party. Two literal parties and political parties that had a specific agenda to serve Black interests and to impact the political environment, both locally and nationally, and ultimately on a global scale. That have we ever thought that they may have been onto something, and that's why the FBI used COINTELPRO to viciously attack them and destroy them from within and tear them down because they had a point? In other words, as long as we're participating in their system that's created for them to win, how will we ever win? Have we ever asked ourselves that? Brother Malcolm tried to tell us. He was killed. When Dr. King finally caught on and shifted gears, he was killed. When the Black Nationalist Party rose up, they were infiltrated. When the Black Panther Party rose up, they were infiltrated. All of them had a message to us that we totally missed. We got into the superficial mechanisms of what was going on, but we never truly looked at the dynamics at play. They were saying we're going to have to create our own power force, that we're going to have to create our own centricity in force and power and interest, that they will never represent our interest because it doesn't serve theirs. You have to understand where you've always been and how you fit it in. Outside for a handful of people who have squeezed through and done certain things in certain spaces at a price that no one ever wants to talk about, the vast majority of us have been held in position because we need to be in that position at the bottom rung of the socioeconomic ladder. And this has been done through a number of different means. And I don't have time to get in all to it. Read my book, Born in Captivity, Psychopathology as a Legacy of Slavery, and look at how they have systematically conditioned us to behave, to think, and to respond to them. And how we handle one another when we see one another not responding and behaving like they want us to behave. One of the quickest ways to get checked in the Black community is start acting like you don't want to be white. If you get too black people will shun you because, shoot, how that's making us look in front of white people. One of the quickest ways to embarrass a Black person is act black in front of a white person. And you don't see any other group doing that. Latinos don't change how they engage one another when a white person walks up. Asians don't change how they engage one another when a white person walks up. But watch us. Shh, shh. It's instilled in us. It's been inculcated into our psyche. It's a part of an indoctrination that makes us want to make sure they're okay, even when it's at our detriment. Now, back to the COVID thing, and then I'm going to shut this thing down. I don't want to see anybody die from anything, but the reality of it is people die every day from all types of causes, a lot of which are preventable. My suggestion is, instead of buying into the fear mongering and the exaggerated numbers that have been proven to be exaggerated with COVID, take the precautions necessary to protect yourself while this is going on, but also ask yourself, in what other ways am I putting my life at jeopardy that I can change? Am I eating healthy? Am I active? Am I exercising enough? Am I mentally healthy? Because your mental health will affect your physical health. There's a thing called psychosomatics. There's also a thing called epigenetics. There's a thing that says when you expose yourself to a negative environment, there's a negative consequence, both emotionally, mentally, but also physically. And so, how am I living and exposing myself to things that could be cutting my life short? Am I adding to or subtracting from my life in the way that I'm living right now? Am I creating a model that my children and grandchildren can follow that will ensure that they have an even healthier life, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and physically? Are we living that? Are we growing that? Are we becoming more intellectually empowered? And when I say intellectually empowered, I'm not talking about academics. I'm talking about the true nature of intellect. Not academics, but educating a person to be a problem solver in their own environment. That's true intelligence. Dr. Amos Wilson talked about this a lot. It's about the true intelligence isn't fixing other people's problems for them, which is what they educate you to do. Come into my workforce, do work for my company. And no, true intelligence is saying that I am this person and I am a part of this group. And here are the problems of this group. How can I use my knowledge, my experience, and my gifting to solve the issues and the problems within my community? That's true intelligence. That's creating a more convenient, a more empowered, and a more fully dynamic environment within your own collective. And that's what we've got to prepare our children to do. That's what we've got to understand at a higher level. Again, I say this again. Every person who dies from anything, their life matters. The thing is, the reason why we only are focused on the COVID situation and we're so sensitive about it is because it has not yet been made socially acceptable. We lose 600,000 globally every year to the flu, but it's socially acceptable. And the reason that they haven't highlighted it and the reason that it has become socially acceptable is because there is money being made off of it. Let's keep it real. Once we got the flu shot out there and people are getting it on an annual basis, and then you find out there's so much going on with that, but I'm not going to get into it. But people are getting it on an annual basis. We're going to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And we're going to let the chips fall where they may. We're going to report the numbers, but we're going to do it very subtly. We're not going to make a big deal out of it. We don't want people to know 600,000 people lost their life this year to the flu. We don't want to know that. We don't want them to know that. We just want them to keep believing if they get the flu shot, everything is okay. We're not going to talk about the negative impact of having the flu shot either. We don't want to talk about that. We're just going to keep things moving. There are so many questions that you have to ask if you're truly going to be aware of what's going on in your surroundings, what's going on in your world. You have to go beyond the surface. You got to ask questions. Because there are a lot of people that are going to blindly jump on the vaccination bandwagon, despite all of the evidence that's been put out over the last 15 years about vaccines and the many questions that still sit on the deck and need to be confirmed or disproved by scientific study. We're going to jump on it. We're going to look at it. Despite the fact that India has actually kicked the World Health Organization, Bill Gates and Fauci out of India based on their polio vaccinations and how many of their children started to get sick and die, as well as South Africa. Lawsuits have actually been filed. We're still going to jump on the bandwagon because we've been mentally and emotionally conditioned to believe that that's going to fix the problem. You know, we have to have a mechanism. And one of the things we do at the Odyssey Project is we do the research. We have a research arm that I head, and we do scientific research to get numbers. That's what I do. Every time something pops up on my page and there's a suggestion, there's actually at least an hour of research that goes into anything that I talk about. Anything that I come on and talk about, I've put a minimum of an hour in research just to get the basic details and understand. I don't take anything that's been said at face value. I don't respond to anything based off my emotions or how I personally feel about it. I go find the facts. Now, most of the stuff have hours and hours and hours and years of research backing it. But the little simple things and anecdotal things that I see posted, if I drop in and drop a sentence, I've stopped long enough to go check out to make sure where I'm standing on the issue is where I should be standing. And we don't do enough of that. We let others give us their opinion. We assume their opinion, and then we fight viciously to defend it when we've never vetted it. And that's a problem. We have to stop that. And there are going to be some people who are going to have some takeaways from what I'm saying that's going to be solely, totally divorced from the facts that I dropped. And it's going to be solely based on emotion. And I'm used to it. There are going to be some people say that he supports Trump because he doesn't support Biden. He supports people dying because he's not running around like a rabid dog in fear because of COVID, or because he talks about, you know, certain things within the way it's being reported. There are going to be a bunch of things, and I've said none of that. Matter of fact, everything I said has been to the contrary. I don't support Trump. I don't support Biden either. And I don't want to see anyone die. But the fact of the matter is people are going to die every day. More people are going to die from things that's not COVID than COVID. That's happening every day, but nobody's talking about it. Why? Because it has been made socially acceptable. When you got the phone call that Aunt so-and-so died from a heart attack, you were sad and you're going to cry at the funeral, everything like that. But you didn't lose your mind and go, oh my God, not another one. Even though heart disease is killing way more of us than COVID. Even when they're exaggerating how many Black people are dying from this thing. Nobody has actually gone on and looked at the numbers. I can tell by the stuff you post. I have gone on and looked at the numbers. That number one is they first just start really keeping real true numbers that are associated with race. Most of this stuff is by observation, outside observation. No real numbers, just man. Most of the people that are popping up on the screen are Black. Most people, you know, my so-and-so died, and people coming on and everything like that. Then you got paid, people are being paid to get on and say they had it and they almost died. Literally, this is happening. It happens all the time. They're called paid actors. And it happens with everything. The media controls that. We've also found that the media has used images in wrong light. CBS was caught twice giving a false story using some video footage from an entire different country saying it was a clinic or a hospital in New York. They were caught twice doing it, two different stories. They never retracted. They were caught. And it's a bunch of them doing it. All you gotta do is pay attention to what's going on, like stories about bodies outside of funeral homes and stuff. Check the facts, not true. Check the facts. But I mean, it's so many things. Just like everybody was talking about how a month ago, I had a talk with someone else about this a month ago. Oh my God, there were tanks on trains. They're finna do martial law. It was over a month, almost 2 months ago, at the beginning of March. They're gonna do martial law. It's finna go down. And then there was people talking about by this time Monday, hey, I was just in the meeting with the mayor. And by this time Monday, they don't want everybody to know because they don't want everybody to panic. And by this time, if you need to do something, you need to get out and get it now because by this time Monday, National Guard and troops are going to be on the ground. They're going to be tanks in communities and everything like that. And I was like, no, it's not. Number one is If they decide to do martial law, when you wake up in the morning, they'll be out there. They're not going to warn you. They're not going to say, go out and get everything you need and be back in the house by 6. Because you know we're not going to do that. So when you wake up in the morning, your community will have been overtaken. If we ever go into martial law, they're going to be so smooth with it, and they're already in position. There's no major city that needs to ship equipment to that city to exercise. Over 10 years ago, they put up installations in every major city that's at every major exit and entry into that city. There's a National Guard station. So they can mobilize and legally shut that city down where nobody can leave and nobody can come in. On every major city, that happened a long time ago. Check it out and look. What I can tell you is, from a kid growing up, I grew up next to, literally walking distance from the Port of Houston, the ship channel in Houston, one of the largest ports in the world, definitely in the US. And we saw trains with tanks as kids. That's how they transport stuff to move it to different bases, not just in the US, but around the world. They put them on ships and they move them around the world. They're shipping them around. If you see that on trains, that's normally what's happening. And it's been happening for years. And it doesn't have anything to do with martial law. But what you hear it, one person say it, and all of a sudden and I told them then, in 3 days, we're going to be under martial law. That was 2 months ago. Do some research, do some work, gain an understanding of how things work, understand what it takes to actually put things into law. There was another thing floating around about an executive order issued back in 1976, and that FEMA was now in control of the country. It's total misunderstanding of that. What was crazy is that executive order had actually been amended 2 years later in 1978, which made it obsolete, and that the one from 1978 was a new order. But they were literally passing this video around. My thing is, you got to do your research. You got to be willing to read. We like to comment on things that we have very little real true knowledge on, and we're talking from our fears, we're talking from our desires. A lot of us just have a way, look, I want you to do this, so I'm going to take a hardcore stance on it because I just think that's the right thing to do. And my thing is, have you really thought it out? Have you really thought it out? Because at the end of the day, here's something that I shared with somebody yesterday. They didn't like it a lot, but it's the truth. Here's the thing. At some point, if this thing doesn't quiet down, people are going to be faced with a very hard decision. Am I going to go out and do something to make sure my family eats, or am I going to stay in the house and starve? If I can't find a situation that can pay me being in the house, and they're out there, trust me, I literally hold courses for them. They're out there. But for the people who need to get out and have a job but are afraid to go out, at some point, you're going to do that. And that's been the case for centuries. There was a time where when the man had to go out, he grabbed his spear and he wasn't guaranteed to come home. As we became more civilized and we developed more, we became the top of the food chain, so to speak. The threats against us became less. We became our own greatest enemy. We're more likely to be hurt by another human being in one way or another, whether it's being robbed in a car accident or whatever. But there's a time where you're going to have to face the reality that if nothing doesn't change, I could lose everything sitting in here. And then you still die because you starve to death or you stress yourself to death. You take a risk every time you get up and go to work before COVID ever touched down. It's people at the job with the flu. 600,000 people a year die from the flu. You got people at your job with the flu. Almost guaranteed. And you get up and you go to work. There is so many accidents a day in which there are fatalities. You get up and you drive in that traffic to get to work every day. There's so much on grocery store shelves that cut your life by years. Processed food of any kind. Food with high fructose corn syrup in it. Not to mention what cigarettes do. Not to mention what high volumes of alcohol can do to your body, to your liver, and put you in a situation where you're driving in a car and you can kill yourself or someone else. And it's happening every day. But everybody's got you focused on COVID. And the truth is, you're more likely to die from something else. And again, don't go say that I said that it's okay to go out there. That's not what I said. I said use your own judgment. But at some point, the reality is going to set in. You can't sit it out indefinitely. And what if it does? What if it becomes this thing that just sticks around, and there's going to be a certain amount of people that's going to get it every year? There's going to be a certain amount of people that's going to die for it. You will adjust. It will become socially acceptable. And you will look back at this and say, man, we were tripping, because we have adjusted to so many other things that could kill us. Hell, Black people had to get up and go to work in the South, and that alone was a potential. You could be lynched up until the 60s. And in some places, people still getting lynched. But I mean, back then, you could get lynched for looking at a white woman wrong. You could be lynched for looking a white man in the eyes. And you had to get up every day and you had to go to work, knowing that it was people out there that had no problem with killing you. Sometimes you got to face things and look that there are going to be things out there that go bump in the night. We've never had a utopia where nothing threatened us. We have to be smart about what we do. We have to be aware of what's going on. We need to be more aware politically, a whole lot more aware politically. We need to develop a highly lucid perspicacity of how things work on the political front, from local, state, national, and even geopolitics on a global scale, because that's how we're being manipulated and maneuvered around and used as pawns. And it's going to be up to us to discover it, to master it, and to stop whining and complaining, because whining and complaining has never fixed anything. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. Hope you guys have a great day. As I always say, live your life on full, so that when you leave this place, you die on E. There's work to be done. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, make decisions that you can live with, because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to boil down to. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. But don't let other people manipulate you into fear. Become aware of what's going on and make decisions based off of what you see in front of you. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a great day.
Hello everybody, Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in with a little special announcement. For those who have followed me for any stretch of time, you know, outside of the businesses that I run, like Myriad Business Solutions, the Visionetics Institute, Odyssey Media Group, I also do a great deal of work inside of the inner city communities in Houston, Dallas, and other areas. I'm asking now, as we push a fundraiser, that you support what the Odyssey Project is doing in the inner cities, especially with programs like Black Men Lead, which is a rite of passage initiative, and Restoring Ghetto's Forgotten Daughters, which is a program focused on helping young girls, but boys as well, suffering from childhood sexual abuse, rape, molestation, domestic abuse, absentee fatherhood, and so many other things. The information will be in the box. Thank you.
From a conceptual perspective, people talk about a desire to be successful.